Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you today about hill start with a manual transmission vehicle. Now, just before we get started here, if you're working towards a license or starting your career as a truck or bus driver, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can get all the great videos that will ensure that you do, in fact, pass your license. Hill starts in a manual transmission vehicle, probably the toughest thing to master. Now, if you've been following the lessons thus far, 1 through 4 here on the channel, hill starts are going to be really easy because I already taught you how to do it, believe it or not. If you do it correctly, if you do it every time where you bring the clutch out to the friction point and are holding the brake, when you take your foot off the brake and you hold the clutch at the friction point, you're now holding the vehicle with the clutch. And then you simply move your vehicle to the, or move your foot to the throttle, give it a bit of throttle, and then gently bring the clutch out the rest of the way. Now on a hill start, you're going to have to get a little bit more throttle to get it going. And what you want to do is, the key is to try and bring the clutch out as quickly as possible, because instead of spinning the clutch, you want to spin the tires on the vehicle. It's much easier to spin the tires on the vehicle than it is on the clutch, because you'll prematurely wear the clutch out if you've got a lot of hill starts, as we do here in Vernon, BC. So today we're going to do some hill starts. We're going to show you how to do that. If you haven't mastered clutch control and isolated the clutch, go back to lesson 1, look at that, and figure out how to do clutch control, because that will make this lesson a lot easier. So stick around, we'll be right back with that information. Hi there, Smart Drivers, welcome back. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you today about hill starts in a manual transmission. Probably the most dreaded thing for new drivers to learn how to do, because they're afraid of rolling backwards. So we got a vehicle here and we are on a hill, just going around a corner here. I already showed you how to do this, because if you learn how to do this correctly from the beginning, where you bring the clutch out to the friction point, hold the vehicle with the clutch at the friction point, and then release the brake and move your foot to the throttle. If you've been doing that, then you've already learned how to do hill starts, because I already taught you how to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up the hill here to a very steep hill, which is called East Hill in Vernon. Oddly enough, it's on the east side of town. Out to the friction point right there. Give it lots of throttle and control the clutch. And I'll show you how to do that. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a go to put the handbrake on and start with the handbrake, because for those of you in Europe, that is how driving instructors are going to teach you to do hill starts there. They're going to show you how to put the parking brake on and do your hill start, which is going to be a little bit strange for me because I've never done it that way. So it will be a learning phase for me. Okay, here's a nice steep hill. We'll pull over right here, stop here, hit the brake on enough so it doesn't roll backwards, out to the friction point right there. And you want to spin the tires, so you want to let the clutch out fairly quickly, so you're spinning the tires and not the 2 clutch plates inside the clutch. So give it lots of throttle and bring that clutch out and try and get your foot off the clutch as quickly as possible. If the tires spin a little bit, that's much more preferable than spinning the 2 clutch plates against each other, because you're not going to do this very often, obviously. Okay, we're going to go on this one hill. Here you can see this is an incredibly steep hill here. And this is pretty tough, okay, because it's even tough to just get the vehicle to stop with the brake on. So right there is the friction point. You can see that the needle, the tachometer has sat down. We take our foot off the brake, lots of throttle, and just try and get that clutch out as quickly as possible. Okay, so we'll go down to the bottom of the other hill and we'll start one more time. You can see how quickly this vehicle just rolls down the hill here. Now when you're going downhill like this, you just want to not shift out of gear, try and control the brake, use the drivetrain a little bit. We make sure that there aren't any vehicles coming. We go down to the bottom of this hill here, and we'll do it again. And again, it's the same technique that I've been teaching you in lesson 1, 2, 3, and 4. Bring the clutch out to the friction point, hold the friction point quickly to the throttle, give it lots of throttle, and then expediently bring your foot off the clutch as quickly as possible. And as I said, it's much more preferable to spin the tires than it is to spin the clutch, okay? So out to the friction point right there, quickly, lots of throttle, and you heard that little squawk. I spun the tires, and that's what you want. You want to spin the tires, you don't want to spin the clutch. So out to the friction point right there, off the brake onto the throttle, lots of throttle, and you heard that little chirp. I spun the tires instead of spinning the clutch, and I've got my foot right off the clutch, and that's what you want to do. Now right here at the top, I'm just working the throttle, and I'm just going slow and checking so I don't have to stop again. So that's how you do hill starts. It's the same thing as everything I've taught you, except it's a little more quickly. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here on the hill again. And for those of you in Europe, you can all have a good laugh at this about me trying to use the parking brake here, because I just don't use the parking brake. I've never learned how to do it. And that is a lot more difficult in a petrol engine, especially a small petrol engine like this vehicle here, where it's just a 2-liter petrol engine. If you're in a diesel engine, you're going to find that you've got way more torque, and it's a lot easier to get started with a petrol engine. So I'm going to pull over here on the side of the road, and we're all going to have a laugh at me trying to use the parking brake to do a hill start here. So we're on a hill, clutch in, into first gear. I'm off, out to the friction point. There we go. A little more throttle than we needed probably, but it all worked out. So we'll do one more for you here. Alright, so here we go, one more for you. So stop, foot pedal on, into first gear, handbrake on, out to the friction point. We release the friction point. Now we should be able to take our foot off the brake and the vehicle shouldn't roll. Give it a bit of throttle. When you feel it start to set down, there you go. And that's the way you do it with the handbrake. For those of you in Europe and other places that use the handbrake for hill starts, that's what you can do, because that way that'll let you get your foot on the throttle and give it throttle, and then you can release the handbrake and take off. If you're on a really steep hill, that'll work nicely for you. So we just put the handbrake on, out to the friction point, a little bit of throttle, release, and then go. And as I said, it's important when you're doing hill starts to get your foot off the throttle as quickly as possible. Get your foot off not off the throttle, sorry, off the clutch as quickly as possible, because you want to get those two clutch plates in contact as quickly as possible. When you get those two clutch plates in, then give the tires a little go, spin the tires, and get her going, because it is incredibly hard on your clutch. And obviously you're not going to be doing them like I'm doing here for a training session. You're just going to be doing them every now and again. So there's two options. One way is just to quickly get your foot to the throttle. The other option is to just put the handbrake on and then just give it some throttle. When you feel it start to move forward, then just release the parking brake. And for those of you in racing, we call that a brake stand, where you lock up the brakes and then just start spinning the tires, and it'll just like take off. It's called a brake stand or rocket start. So one more time, here we go. Into first gear, parking brake on, out to the friction point right there, give it throttle, and we go. And that's two options for doing hill starts. And as I said, if you've done them the way that I've taught you from the beginning, by bringing the clutch out to the friction point, holding the brake, and then going to the throttle and holding the vehicle with the clutch, you've already learned how to do hill starts, and it's going to be fairly easy to do hill starts. Now, in another video, I'm going to show you how to recover if you do in fact stall the vehicle, but that's how you do hill starts. Quick review of hill starts in a manual transmission. If you haven't looked at lesson 1 already and isolated the clutch and learned clutch control and have good clutch control and learned where the friction point is on your vehicle, go back to lesson 1 and revisit that and do that again, because to do hill starts successfully without using the handbrake, and I know for those of you in Europe use the handbrake, that's part of their driving culture, which for those of us in North America who drive manual transmissions, it's a little strange. And if you want to know how to use the handbrake, you probably need to go to a driving instructor in Europe, because I can do it, but it's awkward for me. I do not look fluid when I'm doing it. So how you do it: clutch out to the friction point, hold the brake, make sure you hold the brake hard so the vehicle doesn't roll back, because often if you're on a steep hill, you're going to have to hold the brake hard so it doesn't roll backwards. Friction point, expediently off the throttle, give it lots of throttle, especially the steeper the hill, the more throttle you're going to have. And as you're going down on the throttle, you bring the clutch out expediently, because you don't want to spin the 2 plates in the clutch together. You want to bring those 2 plates into contact as quickly as possible and into full contact, so you spin the tires. It's easier on the tires than it is on your clutch, because tires are less expensive than a clutch is going to be. So spin the tires, get the vehicle going. And if you're on a hill and you got traffic behind you, just give it a little bit more throttle. That way you're not going to stall. And as well, make sure you have it in first gear, because it's pretty tough to get it going on a hill if it's in second or a higher gear, and you're most likely going to stall it. And then you need to look at the video on stalling and how to get the vehicle going if in fact you do that. So question for my smart drivers: do you use the handbrake when you do hill starts, or are you going to use the method that I showed you with bringing the clutch out to the friction point and then giving it some throttle and taking off? Leave a comment down in the comment section there. All of that helps out the new drivers learning how to drive a manual transmission. If you like what you see here, share, subscribe, leave a comment down in the comment section. As well, hit that thumbs up button. Check out all the videos here on the channel if you're working towards a license or starting a career as a truck or bus driver. Lots of great information here. And head over to our website. Awesome information over there, and tremendous online courses that you can purchase. Later this month, we're bringing out Air Brakes Explained Simply. It updates the 40-year-old air brake course, 40-year-old air brake manuals that are currently in circulation in North America. As well, it gives you step-by-step instructions to pass both your theory and your practical air brake component if you're working towards getting a license to drive a bus, a truck, or an RV unit. So look for that. As well, there's 100 multiple choice questions that you will be asked on a CDL air brake exam. I'm Rick with Smart Drive Test. Thanks very much for watching. Good luck on your road test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great day. Bye now.
There's a speaker. If they go on about themselves, you're done. After 5 minutes, you're done. I don't want to be here. I hate you. You're a jerk. And it's like, okay. Well, it's true.
Yeah, but it's way funnier though.